Story 1. The Subterranean Bunker. My name is Daniel Beckwith, and I used to believe I could outsmart the end of the world. I'm telling you this from a place I never imagined. Behind bars, my life reduced to a number. But before all that, I was just a guy in Bethesda, Maryland, with a nice house in a quiet suburb and a bank account swollen from tech work. The neighbors thought I was eccentric, maybe, but harmless. They didn't know what I was building beneath their feet. They didn't know about the bunker. It started with a thought, a nagging itch I couldn't scratch. The world felt fragile. Too many headlines about chaos, too many what-ifs. I had the money, the space, and the time, so I decided to prepare. Not just a pantry of canned goods or a generator, but something real. Something that could keep me safe when everything else fell apart. I broke the concrete floor of my basement with a sledgehammer one spring morning in 2014. The first crack felt like freedom. I didn't know it would lead to a grave. I hired guys off the internet, day laborers who wouldn't ask too many questions. I paid them well, $150 a day cash to dig and keep quiet. They'd show up at dusk, slip into the basement, and disappear into the earth. I told them it was a shelter, a project to outlast disaster. Most nodded and got to work. They didn't care about my reasons, only the money. I gave them rules. Stay underground while you work, sleep in the bunker, don't talk about it. I set up a fridge, a microwave, even a gaming console to keep them occupied. It wasn't a prison, I told myself. It was just practical. The tunnels grew fast. I sketched the plans myself, a maze of shafts and rooms spreading like roots. By 2016, we'd carved out 3 main corridors, each snaking toward the edges of my property. One had a shower rigged with salvaged pipes. Another had a bunk room with cots. I'd walk the tunnels at night, flashlight in hand, marveling at how deep we'd gone. The air was damp, heavy with the smell of earth and sweat, but it felt safe. I'd lie on a cot sometimes, staring at the dirt ceiling, imagining the world above burning while I was untouchable below. I didn't know the neighbors' houses were so close. The tunnels stopped just short of their property lines, inches from their foundations. I didn't think about them much. My focus was survival, not boundaries. I'd see them mowing their lawns or walking their dogs, oblivious to the hollow ground beneath. Sometimes I'd wave, and they'd wave back. It was all so normal up there. Down below, though, things were different. Askia Kafra showed up in early 2017. He was 21, skinny but strong, with a quiet way about him. He needed the cash, and I needed another pair of hands. He was good, too, worked hard, didn't complain about the long hours or the dark. I liked him. He'd play video games in the bunk room during breaks, laughing at the screen. I'd bring him snacks sometimes, sit and talk about nothing important. For a while, it felt like we were just 2 guys working on a weird project. I didn't see the danger creeping in. The bunker wasn't just a shelter anymore, it was an obsession. I kept adding rooms, pushing the tunnels deeper. The wiring was a mess. Cables dangling from the ceiling plugged into extension cords that snaked back to the house. I'd scavenged old computers and monitors, stacking them in corners to track weather or news feeds. The place was cluttered, a labyrinth of junk and ambition. Askia and the others navigated it like rats, ducking under pipes, sidestepping crates. I told myself it was temporary, that I'd clean it up once the bunker was done, but it was never done. That September, the air changed. It was subtle at first, a faint, acrid smell like burning plastic. I noticed it one afternoon while checking the tunnels, but I brushed it off. Probably a shorted wire, I thought, or maybe something in the microwave. I didn't mention it to Askia, who was digging in the farthest shaft. He'd been down there for days, sleeping in the bunk room, coming up only to eat or grab tools. I figured he'd tell me if something was wrong. He did, eventually. I was in the kitchen when I heard him climbing the ladder from the sub-basement. His footsteps were quick, uneven. He burst into the room, his face smudged with dirt, eyes wide. "I'd have smelled smoke down here," he said, holding out a scrap of paper with those words scrawled in pencil. His voice was tight, like he was trying not to panic. I froze. Smoke. Down there with all those wires, all that junk. I told him to stay put and grabbed a flashlight. The basement stairs creaked as I descended, the air growing thicker with each step. The smell hit me hard, sharp, chemical, unmistakable. I reached the sub-basement and saw it. A faint haze curling through the tunnels, lit by the dim glow of my flashlight. I called for Askia, but he'd followed me down against my orders. "Stay back!" I shouted. But he was already moving toward the source, coughing as he went. The fire was small at first, a flicker in a corner where a bundle of wires met a crate of old electronics. I grabbed a blanket, tried to smother it, but the flames spread fast, licking up the wooden supports we'd used to brace the tunnels. The smoke was choking now, black and thick, stinging my eyes. I heard Askia somewhere behind me, his coughs turning to gasps. "Get out!" I yelled, but the tunnels were a maze, and the smoke made it impossible to see. I don't know how long it took to reach the ladder. My lungs burned, my head swam. I climbed, clawing my way to the basement, then the kitchen. I collapsed on the floor, gulping air, waiting for Askia to follow. He didn't. I staggered to my feet, called his name. But the smoke was pouring up now, a black column that filled the house. I stumbled outside, coughing, and dialed 911. The operator's voice was calm, distant. I babbled about the fire, the bunker, Askia. I didn't know if he was still down there. The firefighters arrived in minutes, their trucks screaming through the quiet streets. Neighbors gathered on their lawns, staring as flames licked the windows of my house. I tried to explain the tunnels, the rooms, Askia, but the words came out wrong, jumbled. They pulled me back, told me to stay clear. I watched as they fought the fire, hoses blasting, axes tearing through walls. Hours later, they found him. Askia was in the sub-basement, curled near the ladder. The coroner said he'd been overcome by fumes before the flames reached him. His body was burned so badly they couldn't identify him at first. I saw the report later. Those words seared into my brain. Burned beyond immediate recognition. I didn't mean for it to happen. I didn't want anyone to die. But the jury didn't care about intentions. They called it depraved heart murder. The trial was a blur. Lawyers, evidence, the judge's voice cutting through my haze. Judge Margaret Schweitzer looked at me like I was a stranger to humanity. She said my intellectual arrogance had turned my home into a death trap. She was right. I'd built a fortress to escape my fears, but it became a tomb. 9 years they gave me. 9 years for Askia's life. The house is still there, or what's left of it. The fire gutted the basement, left the tunnels collapsed, the concrete floors cracked and scorched. Pipes and wires hang like veins in a corpse. The neighbors know now. They avoid the place, whisper about the millionaire who dug too deep. I don't blame them. I'd avoid it too if I could. I lie awake at night, replaying it all. The sledgehammer's first swing, the tunnels spreading like a cancer. Askia's note, those frantic words. I'd have smelled smoke. I see his face in the dark, hear his laugh from those gaming days. I wonder if he knew in the end how sorry I was. I wonder if it matters. The world didn't end. But down in that bunker, mine did. And I'm left with this story, this warning. Fear can drive you to build anything, but it won't save you from what's inside. Story 2. Spirits of the Spiral Staircase. The house I grew up in was old, its bones creaking under the weight of decades. 3 floors stacked above a basement that felt like a void, a place none of us, me, my 2 sisters, or our parents, ever wanted to linger. The spiral staircase, a narrow wooden coil descending into the dark, was the only way down. Even as a kid, I sensed something wrong with those steps. They weren't just cold or damp, they felt alive, like they were watching, waiting. Our dog, a hulking shepherd named Max, refused to go near them. He'd plant his paws at the top and growl, his fur bristling, staring into the shadows below. At night, when the house fell silent, the staircase spoke. Slow, deliberate footfalls would climb from the basement, each step groaning under an unseen weight. They'd pause outside a bedroom, sometimes mine, sometimes my sister's, for a heartbeat too long, then move on, creaking toward the attic or fading back into the dark. I'd lie awake, blankets pulled to my chin, counting the steps, praying they wouldn't stop at my door. My sisters heard it too. It's just the house settling, Mom would say, but her eyes darted to the basement door when she said it. The first real terror came on Halloween when I was 9. My sisters, Lily and Sarah, and I were sprawled on the living room floor, fiddling with walkie-talkies we'd gotten for Christmas. We were trying to pick up stray signals, giggling as we twisted the dials, hoping to catch a police channel or trucker chatter. Static hissed, then cleared. A voice, low, gravelly, and far too close, crackled through. "Sarah," it said, addressing my older sister by name, "I'm going to hurt you." The room went cold. Sarah dropped her walkie-talkie, her face pale. Lily grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. The speaker went dead. No static, no nothing. Seconds later, Max tore into the room, barking wildly at the empty air near the basement door. His teeth bared, he lunged at nothing, snapping at the shadows. We screamed and scrambled to my bedroom, locking the door, huddling under the covers. The walkie-talkie never worked again, its batteries drained by morning. We didn't sleep that night, and Max stayed glued to Sarah's side, trembling. After that, the house felt different, angrier. The footsteps grew louder, more frequent. Sometimes they'd race up the stairs, frantic, like someone was chasing or being chased. Other times they'd drag, heavy and slow, as if whoever or whatever was climbing was exhausted. I started noticing things, cold spots in the hallway, the feeling of eyes on me when I was alone, a faint pressure at the back of my neck near the basement door. Lily swore she saw a shadow move across her bedroom wall one night, too tall to be any of us, its edges blurry but distinctly human-shaped. Sarah stopped talking about it altogether, her eyes hollow whenever the basement was mentioned. One stormy evening, when I was 11, Mom and I were alone on the second floor. Dad was at work, and my sisters were at a friend's house. Thunder rattled the windows, and the power flickered. We were in the living room, sorting laundry, when the footsteps started again, louder than ever, urgent, thundering up from the basement. They didn't pause this time. They charged up the spiral staircase, each step shaking the floor. I froze, my heart hammering. Mom dropped the clothes she was folding, her face drained of color. The footsteps stopped right outside my bedroom door. Then, bang! The door slammed shut with such force the walls shook. I screamed. Mom grabbed a flashlight and a wrench from the toolbox, her hands shaking as she bolted toward my room. I followed, too scared to be left alone. The door was shut tight, as if locked from the outside, though it had no lock. Mom yanked at the handle, pounded on the wood, even tried prying it open with the wrench. Nothing worked. We were screaming now, clutching each other in the dark hallway, the storm roaring outside. Then slowly, the door creaked open on its own, revealing an empty room. Nothing was out of place, no footprints, no marks, just the lingering chill that made my breath fog. We didn't sleep in that room for weeks. Mom started keeping the basement door bolted, but it didn't help. The footsteps found other ways to make themselves known. One night, I woke to the sound of scratching, slow, deliberate, like fingernails dragging across wood, coming from inside the walls near the staircase. I pressed my ear to the plaster, holding my breath. The scratching stopped, replaced by a faint whisper, too soft to make out, but it knew my name. I didn't sleep again that night. By the time I was 13, the presence had grown bolder. Objects started moving. My favorite book, a worn copy of a mystery novel, would vanish from my nightstand and reappear in the basement, open to a random page. Sarah's hairbrush went missing for days, only to turn up on the spiral staircase, balanced perfectly on the 5th step. Lily found her sketchbook defaced, its pages filled with jagged, looping scribbles that didn't match her hand. Max grew worse, too. He'd pace the house at night, whining, his eyes fixed on corners where nothing stood. Once, he stood at the top of the basement stairs and howled, a sound so raw it made my skin crawl. The worst came the winter I turned 14. A blizzard had trapped us inside for days, the house groaning under the weight of snow. Late one night, I was in the kitchen getting water when I heard it. Not footsteps, but a voice. Clear, unmistakable, coming from the basement. "Come down," it said, soft but commanding. I dropped the glass, water splashing across the floor. Max was at my side in an instant, growling, his hackles raised. The voice came again, closer now, as if it had climbed a few steps. "Come down." I backed away, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst. The basement door, which we always kept bolted, was ajar. I hadn't touched it. No one had. Max lunged at the gap, barking ferociously, but something pulled the door wider, the hinges screaming. I grabbed a kitchen knife and ran upstairs, locking myself in my parents' room. I didn't tell them what I'd heard. I couldn't. They were already frayed, jumping at every creak, every gust of wind. The final straw came a month later. Lily woke the house screaming, her voice raw with terror. We found her in her bedroom, staring at the mirror. She swore she'd seen a face, not hers, staring back, its eyes black and sunken, its mouth stretched too wide. The mirror was ice cold to the touch, even though the room was warm. Dad tried to calm her, but his hands were shaking. That night, we packed essentials and stayed at a motel. We moved out a week later, leaving most of our things behind. The new house was smaller, newer, with no basement, no stairs. Years later, I looked up our old address online. The house had been sold and resold, never occupied for long. One post on a local forum mentioned a family hearing footsteps at night, climbing a spiral staircase that felt wrong. Another claimed their dog refused to go near the basement. I didn't read more. I didn't need to. Whatever lived in that house, whatever paced those stairs, had claimed it long before we arrived. It was never ours. We were just trespassers, living in the shadow of something restless, something that watched us, step by creaking step, in the dead of night. Story 3. The Ghost of Bull's Ferry Road. My childhood in North Bergen, New Jersey, was a patchwork of sunny days and quiet unease. Our neighborhood buzzed with friendly neighbors, park games, and the distant glitter of Manhattan across the Hudson. But beneath the warmth of our old house on Bull's Ferry Road lurked a shadow that clung to me from the day we moved in. The basement. It wasn't just the damp air or the flickering bulb. It was a feeling, like eyes boring into me from the dark. I was 7, and that basement became my private battlefield. I'd play in the laundry room, my safe corner, arranging my dolls in a linoleum house I'd built. The hum of the washer felt like a shield, and the warm light kept the shadows at bay. But when the lights went out or rain drummed the windows, the air shifted. Something watched from the stairs. Not a sound, not a movement, just a presence, heavy and still. I'd freeze, clutching my doll, heart hammering, staring at the black mouth of the staircase. Nothing ever appeared, but I knew it was there. "Mom, there's a ghost in the basement," I'd insist, tugging her sleeve. "I'm not making it up." She'd laugh, blaming my wild imagination, and Dad would say it was just an old house creaking. So I stopped telling them. I told myself it wasn't dangerous. It never moved, never spoke, never did anything spooky. Just stood there, a silent shape in the gloom. I named him the Soldier, picturing a faceless figure in a long coat, though I didn't know why. He became my secret, a companion I didn't want but couldn't shake. One stormy afternoon, I was 9, and the power cut out mid-game. The laundry room went pitch black. I fumbled for my flashlight, its beam slicing the dark, and aimed it at the stairs. For a split second, I saw him, or thought I did. A tall shadow, sharper than the rest, at the bottom step. My breath caught, and I bolted upstairs, slamming the door. I didn't go back down for days. But curiosity tugged at me. I started sneaking down at night, flashlight in hand, daring him to show himself. He never did, not clearly, just that weight in the air, thicker some nights than others. By 11, I'd grown bolder. I'd sit on the basement floor whispering, "Who are you? What do you want?" No answer, but the cold would deepen, like he was listening. One night, I dreamt of a man in a tattered coat, stumbling along the Hudson cliffs, blood soaking his side. He looked at me, eyes hollow, and I woke, gasping. The dream stuck, vivid and raw. I started sketching him in my notebook, a young man with a ponytail, dark coat, boots caked in mud. I didn't tell anyone. It felt too real. At 13, I found a dusty book in the library, North Bergen's Forgotten Battles. My heart stopped when I read about Bull's Ferry Road, my street. In 1780, a Revolutionary War skirmish left Continental soldiers dead along the Hudson, gunned down on the cliffs a block from my house. The book described their desperate retreat, bodies left where they fell. I sat frozen, the pieces snapping together, the soldier, the cold, the dream. He wasn't my imagination. He was one of them, tied to this place, to our house. I felt sick, but also strangely calm. He'd been here all along, not haunting me, but stuck. I started noticing things after that. Doors creaking open when I was alone. Footsteps, soft, deliberate, on the basement stairs at night. Once, my dollhouse was rearranged. The tiny furniture shifted just enough to notice. I didn't scream or run. I whispered, "I know you're here." And the air seemed to lighten, like he'd heard me. I wasn't afraid anymore, not exactly. He felt more sad than scary, a shadow who didn't know how to leave. High school brought new distractions, but the soldier stayed. My friends thought my ghost stories were quirky until one night changed everything. I was 16, in the kitchen with 3 friends joking over homework. Suddenly, Jenna screamed, pointing at the doorway to the basement. "There's a man standing there." Her face was white, eyes wide. I turned, and my blood ran cold. In the dim light, a pale silhouette leaned against the frame. A man in an old-fashioned coat, ponytail tied low, face blurred, but somehow young. He didn't move, just stood, watching. "It's okay," I said, voice steady despite my racing pulse. "That's just the ghost from the basement." My friends freaked out, grabbing their bags and bolting. I stayed, staring at the doorway. He was gone, but the air felt heavy, like he'd left something behind. Later, I told my brother. He was young, maybe 20. Brown hair, dark coat, standing against the wall. My brother, usually skeptical, looked uneasy. "You saw him too?" he muttered. I nodded. For the first time, I wasn't alone in this. After that night, the soldier appeared more often, not always clearly. Sometimes a flicker in the corner of my eye. Sometimes a shadow sharper than it should be. Once, I woke to find my sketchbook open on my desk, the page with his face staring up. I started talking to him, not expecting answers. "Why are you here? Are you lost?" The cold would pulse like a heartbeat, but he never spoke. I wondered if he even could. By 18, I was ready to leave for college, but the soldier felt like unfinished business. One night, I went to the basement, sat on the stairs, and spoke aloud. "I'm leaving soon. I hope you find peace. You don't have to stay here." The air grew so cold my teeth chattered, and for the first time I felt something like a goodbye, a softening, a release. I never saw him again. Years later, I'm back in North Bergen, visiting my parents. The house feels lighter now, the basement just a basement. I walk the cliffs by Bull's Ferry Road, picturing the battle, the men who fell. I hope he's gone, that young soldier, no longer bound to those shadows. It's been 245 years since that fight. Maybe he's found his way home, beyond the doorway, at last. Story 4. Empire of Bones, the Catacombs Specter. I don't know how long I've been down here. Days, maybe weeks, blur into one endless night. My name is Philibert Aspert, or it was, once. In 1793, I was a doorman at the Val-de-Grace Hospital, a man of simple means, unremarkable, except for my curiosity. That curiosity led me here, to the Catacombs of Paris, a labyrinth of bones beneath the city's pulse. I entered through a cellar, chasing a foolish whim, a shortcut, I thought. I carried a single candle, its weak flame my only companion. When it guttered out, the darkness swallowed me whole. I wandered blind, my hands scraping damp limestone, my boots crunching over fragments of the dead. 11 years later, they found my body, or so the story goes. A key ring from the hospital hung on my belt, the only proof of who I'd been. But the truth? I never left. I'm still here, and the walls know my name. It began with a mistake. The hospital cellar was a maze of its own, but I'd navigated it countless times. That night, I found a door I didn't recognize, half hidden behind a stack of crates. The air beyond it was cold, heavy with the scent of earth and decay. I thought it was just another storeroom. My candle flickered as I stepped through, illuminating a narrow tunnel, its walls slick with moisture. The floor sloped downward, and I followed it, thinking I'd find my way back. The passage twisted, branched, and soon I was in a network of corridors, each lined with skulls and femurs stacked like bricks. The Catacombs. I'd heard of them, whispered about as the Empire of the Dead, but I'd never seen them. My candle burned low, wax dripping onto my fingers. I called out, my voice echoing, unanswered. The flame died, and the darkness was absolute. I don't remember panic at first. I groped along the walls, feeling the smooth curves of skulls under my palms, their empty sockets mocking my blindness. I told myself I'd find an exit, that the tunnels couldn't go on forever. But they did. Hours passed, or maybe days. My throat burned with thirst. My stomach gnawed itself. I slept in fits, curled against the bones, dreaming of light. Sometimes I heard sounds, distant drips, faint scratches like rats skittering over stone. But there was something else, too. A whisper, not quite human, threading through the dark. Philibert, my name, spoken by the walls themselves. I shouted back defiant, but the whispers grew louder, closer, until they seemed to come from inside my skull. I found things in the dark. A rusted nail, a shard of pottery, a broken knife handle. I clutched them like treasures, proof I wasn't mad. Once, my fingers brushed something soft. Fabric, maybe a coat, abandoned in the tunnels. I wrapped it around my shoulders, its mildew scent better than the damp chill. I tried to mark my path, scratching lines into the stone with a nail, but the tunnels seemed to shift. Passages I'd sworn I'd taken looped back on themselves. Skulls I'd marked with a scratch appeared untouched the next time I passed. The catacombs were alive, or I was losing my mind. One day or night, who could tell, I found a chamber different from the rest. The walls were carved with strange, spiraling patterns, not the neat stacks of bones I'd grown used to. In the center, a slab of stone, flat and smooth, like a table. I lay on it, exhausted, and felt a vibration through the rock, faint but steady, like a heartbeat. The whispers returned, sharper now, not just my name, but fragments of words I couldn't understand. Stay, deeper, ours. I bolted upright, heart pounding, and stumbled back into the tunnels. I didn't sleep for a long time after that. Time lost meaning. I survived on trickles of water seeping through cracks, licking it from the walls. I ate things I won't name, things that crawled in the dark. My body weakened, but my senses sharpened. I could feel the catacombs breathing, their air moving like lungs. The whispers never stopped. They guided me or mocked me, leading me deeper when I wanted to climb. Sometimes I saw lights, not my candle, long gone, but faint glimmers like eyes blinking in the distance. I chased them, desperate, only to find nothing but more bones. Once, I found a man, or what was left of him. His skeleton lay slumped against a wall, clothes rotted to threads. A rusted lantern sat beside him, its glass cracked. I wondered if he'd been like me, lost, chasing whispers, I took his boots. They were too big, but better than my own, worn to scraps. As I pulled them on, the whispers laughed, a low guttural sound that made my skin crawl. "Philibert, join us!" I ran, or tried to, my legs shaking. The tunnel seemed to tighten around me, the skulls grinning wider. I don't know when I died. There was no moment, no final breath I could pinpoint. One day I was walking, and the next I was elsewhere, not gone, but not alive either. I could still move, still feel the stone under my feet, but my body was wrong, lighter, colder, like I was made of the same air as the tunnels. The whispers were louder now, a chorus, and I understood them. The catacombs didn't want me to leave. They never had. I was part of them, bound to their bones. Now I wander, as I always did. But I'm not alone. Others come. Cataphiles, they call themselves, thrill seekers with torches and maps. I watch them, their lights casting shadows that dance like specters. Some hear me. A girl once froze, her flashlight trembling as I whispered her name. I didn't mean to. She just looked so alive, so temporary. She ran, screaming, and I felt the catacombs hum with satisfaction. They liked the fear. Tonight is different. It's the anniversary, or so the living say. November 3rd, the night I vanished. The tunnels are restless, the air thick with anticipation. I hear footsteps above, voices echoing through the grates. A group of cataphiles, young and reckless, slips through an unmarked entrance. Their flashlights cut through the dark, but the beams waver. They're laughing, joking about ghosts, about me. I follow, silent, my presence a chill they can't explain. The whispers rise, not just mine now, but others, older, hungrier. The catacombs are awake. They reach a fork. 3 tunnels branching into blackness. One of them, a boy with a nervous laugh, suggests splitting up. The others hesitate, but bravado wins. They divide, 2 going left, 2 right, the boy alone down the center. I choose him. His flashlight flickers as he walks, the batteries draining faster than they should. He doesn't notice me yet, but he will. The walls murmur his name, Lucas, and he stops, head cocked, listening. "Hello?" he calls, voice cracking. The catacombs answer, a low rumble that shakes dust from the ceiling. I step closer, my form barely a shimmer in his light. He gasps, stumbling back, his flashlight dropping. It rolls, casting wild shadows, skulls leering in the strobe. "Lucas," I whisper, and he screams, running blindly. The tunnels twist around him, as they did for me, leading him deeper. His friends call out, their voices faint, but the catacombs swallow the sound. Lucas is mine now, or the catacombs. There's no difference anymore. The others search for him, their shouts growing frantic. I watch from the shadows, my keyring jingling faintly, a sound only the walls hear. One girl finds a mark on the wall, a scratch like the ones I made, but it's fresh, made with a trembling hand. She whispers Lucas's name, and the catacombs echo it back, mocking. They won't find him. The tunnels shift, closing paths, opening others. The group stumbles into the carved chamber, the one with the stone slab. They freeze, their lights catching the spirals on the walls. The vibrations start, stronger now, and the whispers become a roar. Stay, deeper, ours. They run, but the catacombs are patient. One by one, their lights fail. The darkness takes them, as it took me. I don't know if they'll die, or if they'll wander, like I did, until they're part of the bones. The catacombs don't care. They collect us all in time. I'm still here, walking the tunnels, my name carved into the air. The skulls watch, silent, their sockets empty, but seeing. Sometimes I hear new voices, new names, whispered back to me. Lucas is one of them now. His screams faded to murmurs. The catacombs grow, fed by the lost, and I am their specter, their guide, their prisoner. If you come down here, if you hear the walls speak, don't listen, don't follow. My name is Philibert Aspart, and I'm still waiting for the light. Story 5. The Shanghai Tunnels. Whispers in the dark. The air in Old Town Portland carried a damp chill as I joined a small group outside a weathered pub, its faded sign barely legible under the flickering streetlight. Our guide, Doug, a wiry man with a lantern and a grim smile, led us through a side door into the basement. The stairs creaked underfoot, descending into a musty darkness that seemed to swallow the light. Doug's voice echoed off the stone walls as he explained, this building, once the Grand Merchant Hotel in the 19th century, hid a sinister secret. Beneath its polished facade, a network of tunnels snaked under the city, passages used to smuggle and trap unsuspecting souls. I gripped my lantern tighter, its weak glow barely piercing the gloom. Doug stopped at a heavy wooden door, its surface scarred and splintered. This, he said, is where it all begins. He pushed it open, revealing a narrow tunnel lined with crumbling brick. The air grew colder, heavier, as if the walls themselves exhaled a warning. He told us about Nina, a young woman whose name was scrawled in faded paint above a doorway further down. She'd been lured here, trapped in a hidden brothel, her life stolen by men who profited from misery. Nina escaped once briefly, only to be found days later at the bottom of an elevator shaft, her lifeless body crumpled like discarded cloth. No one was ever caught. Some say she never left, Doug whispered, his eyes scanning the group. Her spirit lingers, watching. We moved deeper, the tunnel narrowing until the walls brushed my shoulders. The group's footsteps shuffled unevenly, and I noticed a woman beside me, Claire, clutching her jacket, her eyes darting to the shadows. Doug pointed to a hollowed-out cell carved into the stone, its wooden door half rotted. They called these the holding pens, he said. Men were dragged here, drugged, and sold to ship captains. Some woke up at sea, others never woke at all. Shards of broken glass glittered on the cell floor, remnants of bottles used to subdue captives. I imagined the crunch of glass under boots, the muffled cries swallowed by these walls. A faint sound broke my thoughts, a low, guttural rasp, like air escaping a sealed pipe. I froze, glancing at Claire. Her face was pale, her lips parted. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. I nodded, but Doug pressed on, oblivious or ignoring it. The tunnel curved and the air grew colder still, my breath visible in the lantern's glow. Doug stopped at a junction where the brick gave way to modern concrete patches, evidence of repairs over failing stone. "This place fights to be remembered," he said. "The city tries to bury it, but the tunnels don't let go." We reached a wider chamber, its ceiling sagging under the weight of the city above. Doug set his lantern on a ledge, casting long shadows that danced like figures on the walls. He told us about a recent incident from June 2023. A bartender named Ashley had come down here alone to fix a tap. She was methodical, used to the basement's quirks, but that night, something changed. A growl, loud, animalistic, and impossibly close, erupted behind her. She dropped her tools and ran, never returning to the basement. "She swore it wasn't human," Doug said, his voice low, "and she's not the only one. Visitors hear things, whispers, screams, footsteps when no one's there." Claire's hand brushed mine, her fingers icy. "I don't like this," she muttered, her eyes fixed on the dark corner where the lantern's light didn't reach. I followed her gaze, half expecting to see something. A shape, a face, nothing, but the air felt wrong, like it was pressing against my chest. Doug urged us forward, but Claire hesitated, her breath quickening. "I heard it again," she said, louder now. "That sound." I strained my ears, catching only the drip of water somewhere deep in the tunnels. Or was it something else? A faint tap, like footsteps on stone. The group moved on, but Claire stayed rooted, her lantern trembling in her hands. "I'm not going further," she said, her voice sharp with panic. Doug tried to calm her, but she backed toward the chamber's entrance, her light casting wild shadows. "I heard a voice," she insisted. "It said my name." The group exchanged glances, some skeptical, others uneasy. I wanted to dismiss it, but the hair on my neck stood up. I'd heard something too, not a voice, but that rasp, like a warning growled through clenched teeth. Doug led us to another cell, smaller, its door gone, leaving only rusted hinges. Inside, the floor was littered with more glass glinting like eyes in the dark. He told us about a tour group from last year. A man named Tom, a skeptic, had lingered in a cell like this, joking about ghosts. Then he screamed, claiming something grabbed his arm. No one saw anything, but Tom's sleeve was torn and he refused to return to the tunnels. "Nina doesn't like skeptics," Doug said, half smiling, but his eyes were serious. The tunnel sloped downward, the air growing thick with a smell of damp earth and something sharper, like rust or blood. My lantern flickered, and for a heart-stopping moment, I thought it would die. Claire, now walking beside me again, whispered, "Do you feel it, like we're being watched?" I nodded, my throat tight. The group's chatter had faded. Even Doug's voice seemed muted, as if the tunnels absorbed sound itself. We passed another doorway, Nina's name scrawled above it in jagged letters. I swore I saw the paint glisten as if freshly written. A sudden thud echoed behind us like a stone falling. Everyone turned, lanterns raised, but the tunnel was empty. "Old building settle," Doug said, but his voice lacked conviction. Claire grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. "That wasn't the building," she hissed. I wanted to agree, but fear kept my words locked away. The group pressed closer together, our lanterns forming a fragile pool of light. Doug pointed to a narrow passage ahead. "Last stop," he said, "then we're out." The final chamber was vast, its walls scarred with claw-like marks, as if something had tried to escape. Doug's lantern cast shadows that twisted into shapes, hands, faces, figures that vanished when I blinked. He told us this was the deepest point, where the tunnels connected to the waterfront. "People disappeared here," he said. "Some say they still do." As he spoke, a low moan filled the chamber, rising and falling like a distant wind. Claire gasped, and even Doug paused, his lantern shaking slightly. I felt it then. A presence, heavy and deliberate, like eyes boring into my back. I turned, but nothing was there. The moan came again, louder, closer, and Claire dropped her lantern. It hit the ground, the glass cracking but not breaking, its light flickering wildly. "We need to go," she said, her voice breaking. The group murmured agreement, and Doug, for the first time, looked rattled. "Stay close," he said, leading us back toward the stairs. The return was faster, our footsteps echoing in the tight passages. Every shadow seemed to move, every drip of water sounded like a whisper. I kept glancing back. half expecting to see Nina or something worse following us. Claire stayed close, her breath ragged. As we passed the cell with the broken glass, a sharp crack rang out, like another shard snapping underfoot. But no one was near it. Doug didn't stop, didn't speak, just kept moving. The stairs to the surface appeared, their wooden steps sagging but solid. We climbed, the air lightening with each step, but the weight of the tunnels clung to me. At the top, Doug pushed open the door, and the cool night air flooded in, sharp and clean. I stepped outside, my heart still pounding, and glanced back at the dark doorway. For a moment, I thought I saw a shadow shift, a faint outline against the blackness. Then it was gone. Claire stood beside me, her face pale but relieved. "I'm never going back down there," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, unable to shake the feeling that something had followed us to the edge of the light. The pub sign creaked above us, and the city hummed with life, but the tunnels below stayed silent, waiting, watching, holding their secrets in the dark. Story 6. The Girl in the Basement. I'd always wanted a house of my own, a place to carve out some peace in this noisy world. So when I found the old suburban home on Maple Drive, cheap, quiet, a bit run down but solid, I didn't hesitate. It was a 2-story relic from the 60s with faded wallpaper and creaky floors that groaned underfoot like they were alive. The realtor warned me the basement was quirky, but I brushed it off. A basement's just storage, right? I signed the papers and moved in that spring. The first night, I couldn't sleep. Not because of the new place jitters, but because of the tapping. It started around midnight, sharp and deliberate, like someone rapping their knuckles on wood. One tap, pause, then another. It came from the walls, the ceiling, sometimes the floor. I tore the house apart looking for loose pipes or scurrying rats, but found nothing. By the third night, I'd named the source Knocks. It wasn't just noise, it felt like communication. I tested it one evening, standing in the dim kitchen, my breath shallow. "Is someone here?" I asked, voice barely above a whisper. Tap, one tap. Yes, my skin prickled. "Are you dangerous?" Tap, tap, 2 taps. Number, I don't know why, but I believed it. Knox became my odd housemate, tapping once for yes, twice for no, otherwise leaving me be. It was strange, but manageable. The basement, though, that was different. The basement door was at the end of a narrow hall, heavy oak with a rusty lock. The first time I went down, I regretted it. The stairs creaked under my weight, and the air grew thick, like breathing through a wet cloth. At the bottom was a concrete space, dimly lit by a single flickering bulb. Yellow-painted scaffolding jutted into one wall, forming a sort of alcove that didn't belong. The metal bars were bolted into the concrete, rusted and cold. The whole place had a presence, like it was watching, waiting. I couldn't shake the feeling I wasn't supposed to be there. After that, I avoided it, especially after dark. Months passed, and I settled into a routine. Knox kept its distance, and I kept the basement door locked. Life was quiet until my sister called asking if her family could visit. Her 5-year-old daughter, Ava, was my favorite person. Bright, curious, always drawing pictures of stars and trees. I said yes, eager for company. They arrived on a crisp fall afternoon. Ava bounded in, her sneakers squeaking on the hardwood, clutching a stuffed rabbit. We ate dinner in the dining room, the house feeling warmer with their voices. But as I cleared the plates, Ava tugged my sleeve, her wide eyes fixed on the hallway. "Who's the little girl living here?" she asked, pointing toward the basement door. I froze. The hallway was empty. The door shut tight. "What girl, Ava?" She leaned closer, whispering, "The one standing by the door. I don't like how she looks at me. She's scary." My stomach twisted. I glanced again. Nothing, just shadows. Ava's face was pale, her grip on the rabbit tight. I forced a smile. "Maybe it's just the light playing tricks. Let's get you some dessert, okay?" She nodded, but her eyes stayed on the door. That night, I checked the basement lock twice, sliding the rusty key into my pocket. I didn't sleep well. The next day, Ava seemed fine, coloring at the kitchen table while her parents ran errands. I kept busy, but her words gnawed at me. A little girl. Knox had never felt threatening, but what if there was something else? Something I couldn't sense. That evening, after tucking Ava into the guest room, I crashed on the couch. I woke to silence. Too silent. The house felt wrong, like the air had thickened. I checked the guest room. Ava's bed was empty, her rabbit on the floor. Panic surged. I called her name, tearing through the house. Nothing. Then I saw it. The basement door, ajar. The key was gone from my pocket. My heart pounded as I grabbed my phone, its flashlight cutting through the dark. Overhead, Knox tapped twice, frantic. Danger. I ignored it, swinging the door open. The darkness was alive. It flowed out, cold and heavy, chilling me to the bone. The stairs descended into a void, each step creaking louder than the last. My phone's light barely pierced the black, casting jagged shadows. The basement felt wrong. Bigger, somehow, the walls too far away. I reached the bottom, my breath shallow, and scanned the room. The scaffolding alcove loomed in the corner, its yellow bars glinting like teeth. "Ava?" I whispered. A faint sob answered. I rushed to the alcove, my light shaking. There, curled behind the bars, was Ava, her dark pajamas blending with the shadows. Her face was streaked with tears, her body trembling. "Ava!" I hissed, reaching through the bars. They were ice cold, biting my skin. I hooked my arms under hers, pulling gently. She was light, but the bars seemed to resist, like they didn't want to let her go. I yanked harder, and she slid free, clinging to me. "We're getting out," I said, voice shaking. I turned, but the basement had changed. The furniture, old chairs, a table, was stacked upside down, forming a corridor that stretched too far. The air grew hot, suffocating, like something was breathing down my neck. I ran, Ava's arms tight around me, the stairs seeming endless. My leg burned, scratched by something sharp, but I didn't stop. We burst into the kitchen, gasping. Ava's parents were there, eyes wide. They rushed over, prying Ava from me. In her tiny hands was the rusted basement key, clutched like a lifeline. I hadn't given it to her. I hadn't unlocked the door. At the clinic later, a doctor bandaged my leg. The scratches were deep, jagged, running from calf to ankle. "These weren't made by furniture corners," she said, tracing the cuts. "They look like a hand." My blood ran cold. Ava was quiet, clutching her rabbit. Her parents took her to a hotel that night, and I went with them. In the sterile room, Ava finally spoke, her voice barely audible. "She said I had to," she whispered. "The girl, she said if I didn't go downstairs, she'd eat Mommy and Daddy." I couldn't speak. My mind raced, piecing together fragments. The cups of milk I'd left out, thinking it was for Knox. The bits of food I'd set near the basement door, half joking like offerings. I remembered an old story my grandmother told. Villages leaving milk at house corners to appease wandering spirits. Not demons, but something older, hungrier. The house stood empty after that. I never went back. Whatever lived in that basement, it had been fed, and I knew deep down it was still waiting. Story 7. Whispers from the Hollow beneath Eldridge. The air in Eldridge was heavy, like the town itself was holding its breath. I'd moved here a month ago, chasing cheap rent and solitude after a messy breakup. The town was a speck on the map, nestled in a valley where the sun seemed to give up early, leaving shadows to pool in the streets. The locals were polite but distant, their smiles tight, their eyes darting to the ground when I mentioned the old church at the town's edge. It was a crumbling relic, its spire jagged against the sky like a broken tooth. Nobody went near it. Nobody talked about it. That should have been my first warning. I was unpacking boxes in my rented cabin when I first saw the old man. He sat on a bench across from the church, his coat threadbare, his skin pale as ash. He stared through the rusted iron gates, fixated on the altar inside, barely visible through the gloom. Curiosity got the better of me, and I wandered over, hands in my pockets, trying to look casual. "Nice view," I said, nodding toward the church. He didn't look at me. His voice was low, almost a growl. "There are things here you don't understand. Things beneath us. The tunnels. They're not just tunnels. They're a way out and a way in. But nothing that goes in comes out the same." I laughed, thinking it was just small-town folklore, the kind old-timers spin to scare newcomers. But his eyes flicked to mine for a split second, and I froze. They were wide, bloodshot, like he'd seen something he couldn't unsee. I mumbled some excuse and left, but his words clung to me like damp rot. That night, I couldn't sleep. The cabin creaked, and the wind outside sounded like faint whispers. I kept hearing his voice. Nothing that goes in comes out the same. By morning, I was at the library, a squat building with peeling paint and shelves of dusty books. The librarian, a woman with gray hair pulled tight, watched me like I'd tracked mud inside. I asked about the town's history, specifically the church. Her lips pursed, but she pointed me to a corner with old records. I found it in a crumbling ledger, handwritten by some settler a century ago. Eldridge was built over a network of tunnels, carved by the first settlers for reasons nobody recorded. They stretched for miles, a labyrinth under the valley. Then there was the legend of the Hollow, a chamber deep below where the tunnels converged. People went in, drawn by stories of treasures or secrets, but none came back. The last explorer, a surveyor named Caleb Morse, vanished in 1953. His journal left behind ended mid-sentence. "The whispering is louder now. It knows my name." I closed the book, my mouth dry. The librarian was gone, the library silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights. I should have stopped there. I should have packed my bags and left Eldridge. But something about that church, that hole in the ground, pulled at me. I had to know. That night, I grabbed a flashlight and a crowbar from my toolbox and headed to the church. The town was asleep, the streets empty under a moonless sky. The gates creaked as I pried them open, the sound echoing like a scream. Inside, the air was stale, thick with the smell of mold and something metallic. Shattered stained glass crunched under my boots as I approached the altar. It was stone, carved with strange sigils, spirals and jagged lines that seemed to shift when I blinked. At its base was a hole, barely wide enough for a person, descending into darkness. I knelt, shining my flashlight down. The beam caught nothing but shadows. Then faintly, I heard it, a whisper, like a breath against my ear. "Come closer. Come see what lies beneath." My heart pounded, but my body moved on its own, leading over the edge. The whisper grew, forming my name over and over, a chorus of voices from nowhere and everywhere. Before I could pull back, something grabbed me. A rough, cold hand clamped around my wrists, yanking me forward. I screamed, dropping the flashlight as I plummeted into the hole. The fall was endless, the air rushing past me thick and suffocating. Faces flickered in the dark, pale, eyeless, their mouths moving, whispering words I couldn't understand. Thousands of them lining the walls of an impossible void, their voices blending into a deafening roar. Then, silence. I hit the ground, or what felt like ground, soft, damp, alive. My flashlight was gone, but a faint glow pulsed around me coming from the walls. They weren't stone, they were flesh, slick and warm, veins throbbing beneath the surface. The air was heavy with a sweet, sickly smell like decay and honey. I tried to stand, but my legs wouldn't move. The ground shifted, pulling me deeper, like quicksand made of meat. "Who's there?" I shouted, my voice echoing. The whispers answered, now a cacophony, saying my name, laughing, weeping. I clawed at the ground, desperate to move, but it only tightened its grip. Something moved in the distance, a shape, tall and thin, its limbs too long, its head featureless except for a gaping mouth. It didn't walk, it glided, the ground rippling to carry it closer. I screamed again, thrashing, but the figure stopped just out of reach. It tilted its head as if studying me. Then it spoke, its voice a chorus of every voice I'd ever heard. My mother, my ex, strangers on the street. "You wanted to see," it said. "Now you will stay." The ground surged, swallowing my legs, my waist, my chest. I fought, but it was like drowning in tar. The last thing I saw was that figure, watching, its mouth stretching wider as the whispers became a single voice. "Welcome to the Hollow." I don't know how long I was there. Days, years, centuries. It's all the same in that place. The Hollow isn't a chamber. It's alive, a thing that hungers, that thinks. It took me apart, piece by piece, not my body but my mind, my memories, myself. I saw my life replayed in fragments, my childhood dog, my first kiss, the fight that ended my relationship, but they weren't mine anymore. They were twisted, rewritten, fed back to me by the whispers until I didn't know what was real. I woke on the church floor, the altar above me, the hole gone. My clothes were torn, my hands scratched raw, but I was alive, or so I thought. The town was silent as I stumbled outside. No lights in the houses, no cars on the roads. Eldridge was empty, the streets too clean, like the town had been erased. I ran to my cabin, but it was gone, replaced by a patch of bare earth. My phone was dead, my wallet empty, except for a scrap of paper with my own handwriting. "Don't go back." I found a knife in my pocket, one I didn't own. I carved a warning on the church wall, the only thing I could think to do. If you ever find yourself near Eldridge, don't go looking for the Hollow. Once you do, you won't come back, and something else will be waiting in your place. I don't know where I am now. I walk roads that don't end, past towns that don't exist. My reflection isn't mine. It smiles when I don't, moves when I'm still. The whispers are quieter now, but they're always there, in my head, in the wind, in the shadows. They tell me I'm home. They tell me I'm theirs. If you're reading this, you're already too close. The hollow knows your name. It's waiting. Story 8. Portland's Subterranean Secret. The warehouse loomed on Portland's outskirts, a crumbling relic of the city's industrial past. Its boarded windows gaped like empty sockets, and the air carried the sour reek of decay. My friends, Devin and Chris, had been chasing rumors of secret tunnels beneath the city for weeks, pieced together from cryptic forum posts and half-forgotten urban legends. I wasn't sold on the idea, but their excitement was infectious, and honestly, I had nothing better to do on a gray Saturday. So there we were, prying boards off a side entrance, our flashlights cutting through the dusk. Inside, the air was thick with mildew. Graffiti smeared the walls, gang tags, crude drawings, and one image that kept showing up, a black butterfly with jagged blue splotches. It was scratched into the plaster, spray-painted on crates, even carved into a rusted filing cabinet. Weird, I muttered, my voice swallowed by the vast, echoey space. Devin, always the fearless one, was already halfway across the room poking at a pile of debris. Chris, more cautious, hung back, his flashlight beam darting nervously. "Yo, check this out," Devin called. He'd found a stairwell leading down, its metal steps coated in grime. My stomach twisted, but I followed. The basement was worse, claustrophobic, damp, and littered with trash. The butterfly symbol was everywhere, scrawled obsessively across the concrete walls. Then we saw it, a jagged hole where a door frame had been smashed out, revealing a dark, wet tunnel beyond. The air pouring from it was cold, heavy with the smell of earth and something sharper, like old blood. "Dude, this is it," Devin said, his eyes gleaming. "The tunnels." Chris hesitated, but Devin was already stepping through. I sighed and followed, my flashlight barely piercing the gloom. The tunnel was narrow, its walls slick with moisture. Water dripped somewhere ahead, each plop echoing like a heartbeat. My chest tightened with every step, a nagging dread I couldn't shake. We'd been walking maybe 10 minutes when Devin stopped short. His light caught a collapsed side passage, rubble spilling across the floor. Something glinted in the mess, a rusted metal chain. He tugged it free, revealing a heart-shaped locket. "Desiree," he read, flipping it open. The name hung in the air, heavy and wrong. I shivered, my skin prickling. "Put it back," I whispered, but Devin pocketed it, his face unreadable. We pressed on, the tunnel opening into a wide chamber. The air here was colder, the darkness thicker. My flashlight swept the floor, catching glints of movement, rats, dozens of them, skittering away from stagnant pools of water. Then I saw it, a massive mound in the center of the room. At first I thought it was debris, but as my light steadied, I made out the shapes, femurs, ribs, skulls, human bones, piled high, some still clinging to scraps of fabric. Chris laughed nervously. "No way, that's got to be fake, right?" Devin stepped closer, prodding the pile with his boot. A jawbone clattered out, its lower half shredded but unmistakably human. My throat closed up. There were too many bones for one person. Dozens, maybe more. "We need to go," I said, my voice shaking. Chris nodded, his bravado gone, but before we could move, a deafening crash echoed through the tunnels, a heavy metal door slamming shut somewhere behind us. Footsteps followed, slow, deliberate, crunching on the wet concrete. My heart slammed against my ribs. "Run!" Devin hissed. We bolted, flashlights bouncing wildly. The tunnel seemed to twist and narrow, the walls closing in. I was sprinting blindly when my ankle caught on a jutting pipe. Pain shot through my leg as I hit the ground, my flashlight skittering away. The darkness swallowed me whole. I scrambled backward, my hand slipping in the muck. The footsteps were closer now, wet and heavy, just a few feet away. I froze, every muscle locked in terror. Then I felt it, a presence right behind me. The air turned icy, and a ragged whisper, female and broken, murmured, "Get out, they'll find you." An icy hand clamped onto my shoulder, the pain sharp and deep, like it was piercing my soul. For a split second, I felt her anguish, grief, fear, despair. Before the grip released, I screamed, crawling toward the faint glow of Devon's flashlight. He was there, pulling me up, his face pale. "What the hell was that?" he whispered. My shoulder throbbed, but I didn't answer. My eyes caught something glinting on the floor, a silver ring, simple but distinct. Beside it, in the muck, were 2 bare footprints, small and perfect, leading into the dark. Devon stared at the ring, his breath hitching. That's my sister's," he said, voice breaking. His sister Mia had vanished 3 years ago. No trace, no leads. We didn't speak after that. We just ran, the tunnel a blur of panic and shadows. When we finally burst into the warehouse basement, the air felt like a lifeline. We stumbled into daylight, piling into Devon's Jeep. My ankles screamed with every step, but I didn't care. We peeled out, the warehouse shrinking in the rearview mirror. The next day, a headline in the city paper stopped us cold. Sex trafficking suspected in mysterious Portland tunnels. The article mentioned the black butterfly symbol, linking it to forum posts about a nationwide abduction ring. My blood ran cold. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing that whisper, feeling that icy grip. Devon didn't talk about the ring, but I saw him clutch it like a lifeline. We never went back. But sometimes in the quiet, I hear those wet footsteps, that sorrowful voice, and I wonder who or what Desiree was and who she was trying to save us from. Story 9. Do not look down. I'd only been in the house a week when I found it. The place was a steal for its size. Turn-of-the-century creaky floors, high ceilings, and a basement stuffed with the last tenant's junk. I'm a writer, so the solitude of this old relic suited me fine. No neighbors for miles, just fields and fog. Perfect for deadlines. But the basement? It was a mess. Cardboard boxes sagged under their own weight, spilling papers and moth-eaten clothes. I figured I'd clear it out, maybe make a workspace down there. That's when I saw the shelf. It was bolted to the back wall, heavy with rusted tools and jars of nails. Something about it felt off, too deliberate. I tugged at it and it groaned, revealing a hairline crack in the concrete behind. My pulse kicked up. I grabbed a crowbar, and after some cursing and sweat, the shelf swung free. There it was. A plain wooden hatch, no handle, just a tiny keyhole crusted with rust. It looked like it hadn't been touched in decades. I should have left it alone. But curiosity's a cruel thing. It was 3 a.m., couldn't sleep, too wired from coffee and a blank page. I grabbed a paperclip, bent it into a pick, and knelt by the hatch. The lock was stubborn, but after a few minutes of fumbling, it clicked. The sound echoed in the quiet basement like a gunshot. I pried the door open, and a cold draft hit me, damp, metallic, with a sickly sweet undertone like something rotting just out of sight. My skin prickled, but I couldn't stop. I grabbed my flashlight and peered inside. A stone spiral staircase twisted down into blackness. The steps were worn smooth, like countless feet had tread them over centuries. The air felt wrong, heavy, like it was pressing back against me. I hesitated, shining the light down. It didn't reach the bottom, just endless dark. My heart was hammering, but I stepped onto the first stair, then the next. The hatch creaked shut behind me, but I barely noticed. I was too focused on the descent. The stairs went deeper than any basement should. The walls were slick with condensation, and the smell grew stronger, nauseating like spoiled meat left in the sun. My flashlight flickered, and for a second I thought I heard something, a faint ripple like water disturbed. I froze, listening. Nothing, just my own ragged breathing. I kept going, step after step, until my legs burned. Finally, the stairs ended in a small circular chamber carved from smooth rock. The air was freezing, my breath visible in the beam of light. In the center of the floor was a stone well, its lip worn glossy by time. The walls around me were scratched with words, etched in a frantic, uneven script. Do not look down. Over and over, circling the chamber like a madman's mantra. Some were fresh, others faded, as if carved years apart. My stomach twisted. Who'd been down here, and why? The well drew my eyes like a magnet. It was wide, maybe 6 feet across, and the darkness inside it seemed deeper than it should have been, like it wasn't just a hole, but a void. I edged closer, my flashlight shaking in my hand. The air grew colder, biting through my sweater. Then I heard it, a faint ripple from below, like something stirring in the water. My throat went dry. I told myself the warnings were nonsense, the work of some unhinged squatter. I had to see. I leaned over the well, aiming the flashlight down. The beam cut through the dark, but the water was too far to see clearly. Another ripple broke the surface, louder this time. Then a voice, soft, distant, like an echo trapped in the stone. Help me. It was faint, trembling, not threatening, but desperate. My chest tightened. Against every instinct, screaming to run, I leaned closer, straining to see. The flashlight beam finally hit the water, and something moved. A shape broke the surface, a pale, human-like face rising slowly from the depth. Its eyes were massive, unblinking, like twin moons in a skull too small for them. Its mouth stretched impossibly wide, lined with rows of needle-thin teeth that glinted in the light. It wore a hideous, endless smile, frozen in place as it stared up at me. I couldn't breathe. My mind screamed to move, but my body was locked. Help me, it whispered again, the voice now clear, coming from that gaping maw. The thing's head tilted, its eyes never leaving mine. Then it began to rise faster, its body breaking the water, long, skeletal, with limbs that bent wrong, like a spider unfolding. I stumbled back, my flashlight slipping from my hand. It clattered against the well's edge and fell, plunging into the water with a sickening splash. The chamber went dark. I ran. My shoes slipped on the slick stairs as I scrambled up, the whispers chasing me. Help me, help me, help me. I slammed into the hatch, shoving it open, and crawled out into the basement. My hands shook as I dragged the shelf back in place, its screech drowning out the pounding in my ears. I collapsed against it, gasping, waiting for something to follow. Nothing did. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room, staring at the basement door, expecting it to burst open. Dawn came, gray and cold, and the house was silent. I told myself it was a hallucination, stress, exhaustion, a bad dream. But the scratches on my arms from the stone walls were real. So was the damp, rotting smell clinging to my clothes. That evening, I heard it, a soft scratching, like nails on wood, coming from the ceiling above my desk. I froze, pen in hand, staring up. The sound moved, deliberate, crossing the room and stopping directly over me. Dust sifted down from the beams. My mouth went dry. I grabbed a ladder and checked the attic. Empty, just cobwebs and insulation. But when I came back down, the basement door was ajar. I'd locked it. I know I had. I wedged a chair under the handle and tried to work, but every creak of the house set my nerves on fire. Around midnight, I woke in my chair, heart racing. I hadn't meant to sleep. The room was dark, the only light coming from my laptop's glow. Then I heard footsteps, slow, heavy, pacing above my bedroom. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen and crept upstairs. The bedroom was empty, the bed untouched, but the window was open, curtains fluttering in the night air. I hadn't touched it in days. The next night was worse. I woke at 3 a.m. to a new sound, muffled like something dragging across the floor. I followed it to the basement door. The chair was still in place, but beyond the door, I heard it again, a wet, scraping noise like something heavy being pulled up the stairs. I backed away, knife in hand, and didn't sleep again. By the third night, I was unraveling. I'd boarded up the basement door, nailing planks across it. It didn't help. At dawn, I found footprints in the hall, muddy, human-shaped, but too long, with toes that splayed unnaturally. They led from the basement door to my bedroom, stopping at the foot of my bed. I checked the boards. They were intact, nails untouched. I couldn't explain it. I stopped working, stopped eating. The house felt alive, watching me. Every night, the sounds grew bolder, scratching, footsteps, that dragging noise climbing closer to the hatch. I started sleeping in my car, but even there, I'd wake to fogged windows and faint whispers, "Help me." I'd drive for hours, but I always came back. The house had my laptop, my notes, my life. I couldn't leave. A week later, I snapped. I tore the boards off the basement door, crowbar in hand, ready to face whatever was down there. The hatch was still hidden behind the shelf, but the air felt different, thicker, expectant. I opened the hatch and descended. Flashlight steadier this time. The chamber was the same, the well unchanged. The warnings still screamed from the walls, "Do not look down." I ignored them, leaning over the well. The water was still, no ripples, no voice. I waited, breath held, but nothing came. Relief hit me. Maybe it was over. Then my flashlight caught something on the well's inner wall, just above the waterline. Scratches, fresh and deep, forming a single word. Closer. My blood went cold. I backed away, and that's when I heard it. A soft splash, like something slipping into the water. I ran again, sealing the hatch, piling boxes against the shelf. But it didn't stop. Last night, I woke to my bedroom door creaking open. The air was freezing, reeking of that same damp rot. In the moonlight, I saw it. Wet footprints, fresh, leading from the doorway to my bed. They stopped inches from where I lay. I didn't move, didn't breathe, until dawn. Now, as I write this, the scratching's back, louder, faster, coming from the basement. The hatch won't hold forever. I hear it in the quiet, that faint longing whisper from below. Help me. It's not pleading anymore. It's waiting. Story 10. The boarded-up windows, the sagging porch, the way the wind seemed to howl louder through its eaves than anywhere else in Niagara Falls. It was a place you avoided, without thinking. Neighbors called it cursed, a shadow that clung to our street like damp rot. I never believed in ghosts, but that house made me question things. Its silence was louder than any scream. It started in February, when the police tape went up. I was walking my dog, Rusty, past the house at dusk when I saw the cruisers parked crookedly, their lights painting the peeling siding red and blue. Officers milled around, their radios crackling, and I caught snippets of words like search and basement. Rusty whined, pulling at his leash, hackles raised. I didn't linger, but I felt it, a prickle on my neck, like the house was staring back. The next morning, the news hit. They'd found remains. Not just bones, but the near-skeletal remains of an unidentified woman, hidden behind a wooden panel under the basement stairs. I read it on my phone, coffee going cold in my hand, under the stairs. I'd walked past that house thousands of times, and all those years she was there, sealed away. The article tied the house to a double murder investigation from the 90s, a cold case everyone thought was dead. The owner, a man named Harold Voss, had been a suspect, but he'd vanished before they could pin anything on him. Now, his house was spilling secrets. That night, I couldn't sleep. My bedroom window faced the house, and every creak from its ancient frame sounded like a plea. I kept my curtains shut, but it didn't help. I imagined her, that woman trapped in the dark, her bones pressed against cold wood. I wondered if she'd screamed, if anyone had heard. Rusty paced the room, growling at nothing. I told myself it was just the wind, but my heart hammered. Days later, the police came back. I watched from my porch as forensic teams in white suits carried shovels to the backyard. They dug for hours, turning the frozen earth into a patchwork of pits. Neighbors gathered, whispering. Mrs. Callahan, who lived across the street, said she'd seen Voss years ago, hauling heavy bags to his truck at midnight. Always thought he was hiding something, she muttered. The dig found nothing, but the image stuck. Voss, a shadow in the night, burying what he didn't want found. The house stayed empty, but it wasn't quiet. At night, I heard things, scrapes, thuds, like something shifting inside. I told myself it was animals, maybe raccoons in the walls, but Rusty wouldn't go near our fence anymore. One night, I woke to a sound like footsteps, slow and deliberate, coming from the other side of my wall. I froze, breath shallow, listening as they faded. My house shared a wall with that one. Whatever was moving was close. I started avoiding my backyard. The fence was low and the house's windows, even boarded, felt like eyes. I stopped walking Rusty after dark, but the dread followed me inside. I'd sit in my living room, TV on low, and feel it, something heavy like the air itself was pressing down. I checked my locks twice, then 3 times. I never looked at the house, but I knew it was there. In April, a journalist came knocking. She was from Buffalo, writing about the case. "Did you ever see anything strange?" she asked, notebook in hand. I told her about the noises, the footsteps. She nodded, jotting it down. "They found her boarded up," she said. "The panel was nailed shut, like he wanted her gone but couldn't let her go." I didn't sleep that night either. I kept picturing it. Voss, hammer in hand, sealing her away while the house watched. The noises got worse. One night, I heard a low moan, like wind trapped in a pipe, but it came from the wall. Rusty barked, fur bristling, and I grabbed a flashlight, heart pounding. I crept to the basement, my own stairs creaking underfoot. The shared wall was cold to the touch, damp with something I didn't want to name. I pressed my ear against it and heard nothing but my own pulse. Then a scratch, faint, deliberate, like nails on wood. I stumbled back, flashlight shaking. I didn't go down there again. By May, the street was a circus. News vans parked daily, and strangers drove by, snapping photos. The house didn't care. It sat silent, its boards warping in the spring rain. But I knew it wasn't empty. Whatever was in there wasn't just bones. I started dreaming about her, faceless, skeletal, reaching through the wall. I'd wake gasping, Rusty whining at my side. I thought about moving, but I couldn't afford it, and part of me felt like running would make it worse, like the house would follow. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. The moans had turned to whispers, too faint to make out, but loud enough to keep me awake. I grabbed a crowbar from my garage and marched to the fence. I don't know what I planned to do, break in, tear down the boards, find whatever was making those sounds. But as I stood there, crowbar heavy in my hands, a light flickered in the house's basement window. It was faint, like a candle, but the house had no power. I froze, breath clouding in the cold. The light pulsed, then went out. I ran back inside, locked every door, and sat up till dawn with Rusty at my feet. The next day, I called the police. They searched the house again, but found nothing. No light, no signs of entry. The officer was kind, but skeptical. "Old houses make noises," he said, "and this one's got a reputation." I didn't argue, but I knew what I'd seen. That night, the whispers were louder, almost words. I caught fragments. "Help, please, find." But they slipped away like smoke. I stopped sleeping altogether. In June, they identified her. Her name was Clara Hensley, a waitress who'd gone missing in '92. The news said she'd been Voss's girlfriend, that he'd killed her and another woman, though they never found the second body. They showed her photo, grainy and faded, a young woman with tired eyes. I couldn't look at it. I kept hearing her voice in the whispers, begging me to do something. But what? The house wasn't mine to tear down, and the police weren't listening. The sounds stopped in July, sudden and final. I should have been relieved, but it felt wrong, like the house was waiting. I started researching Voss, digging through old articles online. He'd been a loner, a mechanic with a temper. Neighbors said he'd worked in his basement late at night, tools clanging. One article mentioned a second basement, a crawl space no one had checked. I stared at my wall, wondering what was on the other side. August brought a heat wave, and the house seemed to sag under it. I hadn't heard anything in weeks, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was building. One night, Rusty growled at the basement door, refusing to move. I opened it, shining my flashlight down. The air was thick, sour. I took one step, then another. At the bottom, the shared wall looked different, darker, like it was stained. I touched it, and my fingers came away wet. Not water, something thicker. I called the police again. This time they took me seriously. They broke through the wall, my side first, then the house's. Behind it was a crawl space barely tall enough to crouch in. They found her, the second woman. Her bones were wrapped in plastic, tucked against the foundation. No name yet, but I knew it was her. The house had kept her, waiting for someone to listen. They sealed it off again, but I'm done. I'm packing tonight, moving in with my sister in Buffalo. The house is quiet now, but it's not empty. I hear it in the walls, in the creak of my own home. Clara and the other watching. I never peeked inside that house, but I didn't need to. Its secrets found me, and I'll never unfeel them. I leave tomorrow, but I know one thing. That house will never let go. Story 11. The Hidden Labyrinth Beneath the House. My name is Tom, and I never believed in things that go bump in the night. That changed when I moved into the old brick townhouse on Maple Street. It was a fixer-upper, built in the 1800s with creaky floors and peeling wallpaper. I thought its only secrets were in dusty history books, maybe a quirky tale or two about its former owners. I was wrong. Dead wrong. It started on a quiet Saturday afternoon. I was in the basement sorting through boxes of junk left by the previous owner when I noticed a faint outline in the wooden floor. Curious, I pried at it with a crowbar, and to my shock, a trapdoor groaned open. Beneath it was a narrow tunnel, barely wide enough for a person plunging into darkness. The air wafting up smelled damp and sour, like wet earth and decay. I grabbed my flashlight, my heart pounding with a mix of excitement and unease, and crawled inside. The tunnel was tight, the dirt walls brushing my shoulders. My flashlight beam danced across the rough surfaces, revealing crude wooden supports holding up the ceiling. After a few feet, the passage opened into a wider corridor. My breath caught. The walls were lined with frayed wires, some sparking faintly, and piles of stained blankets were heaped in corners. The stains looked dark, almost black. Blood, maybe? I shook the thought away, but it lingered like the musty air. The corridor stretched on, branching into side passages. I followed one, my shoes squelching on the wet dirt floor. Cockroaches skittered out of sight, their shiny backs glinting in the light. The air grew thicker, heavy with mold. Every breath burned my lungs and my eyes watered. I found a small chamber, maybe 10 feet across, with a flickering light bulb dangling from a wire. A rusty pipe in the corner dripped water, forming a murky puddle. I couldn't believe it. Electricity and running water down here. Over the next few nights, I explored further, mapping the labyrinth in my head. The tunnels seemed endless, fanning out in every direction. I counted at least 5 rooms, each different in size and shape. Some were bare, with only dirt and mold. Others held relics of some forgotten purpose. A rusted metal chair bolted to the floor, a pile of yellowed papers too damp to read, a cracked mirror reflecting my pale face back at me. The deeper I went, the more the place felt alive, like it was watching me. I posted about it online, hoping someone might know what this place was. The responses were wild. Some said it was an old smuggling route. Others suggested a bomb shelter gone wrong. I answered their questions, confirming the scope. The tunnels ran under the street, maybe even beyond my property. More than 5 rooms, I wrote, all different sizes. The attention was thrilling at first, but it made the house feel less like mine. Even its familiar creaks sounded sinister now, like whispers from below. One night, I ventured deeper than ever. The air was so thick I could barely breathe, and my flashlight flickered, threatening to die. I found a new chamber, larger than the others, with a low ceiling. In the center was a metal hatch, rusted shut. I tugged at it, but it wouldn't budge. As I knelt there, I heard something. A faint scratching, like nails on metal, coming from beneath the hatch. My blood ran cold. I backed away, my beam sweeping the room, half expecting something to lunge out of the shadows. I didn't sleep that night. I kept imagining what could be down there, beyond the hatch. The next day, I bought a crowbar and a better flashlight, determined to face whatever it was. But when I returned to the chamber, The hatch was slightly ajar, just enough to slip a hand through. I hadn't touched it. My stomach churned. Had someone or something opened it? I didn't go through, not then. Instead, I kept exploring the other tunnels, hoping for answers. That's when things got worse. One night, I heard music, not from above, but from somewhere deep in the labyrinth. It was faint, a pulsing rhythm like a heartbeat. I followed it, my chest tight with dread. The sound led to a dead-end wall, but it was louder there, vibrating through the dirt. I pressed my ear against it and nearly gagged. The mold was so thick it coated my skin and the air was toxic. I stumbled back, gasping, and spent the next 2 days coughing up black phlegm. I stopped posting online after that. People were too curious, asking for photos or begging to come see it. I couldn't risk it. The labyrinth wasn't just a curiosity anymore, it was a threat. I started noticing things in the house. Scratches on the basement door, wet footprints leading to the trapdoor, always in pairs, like someone had come and gone. But I lived alone. Last night, I couldn't take it anymore. Armed with my crowbar, I went back to the hatch. It was wide open now, a black void yawning below. The scratching was louder, rhythmic, like it was waiting for me. I shone my light down, but it didn't reach the bottom. A cold draft rose up, carrying a stench worse than anything before, like rotting meat. I almost turned back, but then I heard it, a whisper, faint and garbled, calling my name. I don't know how long I stood there, frozen. My flashlight flickered again, and in that split second of darkness, I swear I saw something move below. A shape, too big to be human, slithering out of sight. I dropped the crowbar and ran, sealing the trapdoor behind me. I piled every heavy object I could find on top of it, boxes, furniture, anything to keep it shut. I'm writing this now because I don't know what else to do. The house is quiet, but it's not safe. I hear the scratching again, not from the basement, but from the walls, the ceiling, everywhere. The labyrinth isn't just below me, it's all around me. I don't think I found it by accident. I think it wanted me to find it. And whatever's down there, it's not done with me yet. If you're reading this, stay away from Maple Street. Don't buy the old brick townhouse, and if you ever find a trapdoor in your floor, leave it closed. Some secrets are better left buried. I haven't left the house in days. The scratching never stops, and last night the trapdoor rattled like something was pushing from below. I've nailed it shut, but the wood is splintering. I found more footprints this morning, leading from the trapdoor to my bedroom door. They weren't mine. I'm going back down tonight, not because I want to, but because I have to know. If I don't come back, let this be a warning. The labyrinth isn't empty, it's alive, and it's hungry. Story 12, The Ruinerwold House of Secrets. My name is Elias, and I'm the one who escaped. The world outside calls it the Ruinerwold House of Secrets. But for me, it was just home. A prison beneath the earth where time stopped and hope withered. I'm telling this story because the weight of it still claws at me, even now, years after I stumbled into that bar, half mad, begging for help. I need you to understand what it was like to feel the cold of that cellar, to hear the whispers that kept us bound. This is my truth, raw and jagged, laid bare for you to witness. It started with the storm. The night I fled, the sky over Drenthe was a bruised, roiling beast, spitting rain like venom. I was 25, but I felt ancient, my body frail from years of confinement, my mind a tangle of fear and defiance. The farmhouse above us was silent, its creaking floors a familiar warning. Down below, in our hidden cell, my siblings slept fitfully on thin mattresses, their breaths shallow in the damp air. The single bulb flickered, casting shadows that danced like specters on the brick walls. I lay awake, staring at the false cupboard door above, the only barrier between us and the world we'd never known. For 9 years, we'd lived in that cellar, my 6 siblings and I, alongside the man we called father. He wasn't frail then, not at first. His voice was iron, his will a chain. He told us the world above was poison, that we were safe only in the dark, hidden from dangers we couldn't name. As a child, I believed him. I had no reason not to. His stories were all I knew. But as I grew older, cracks formed in his tales. I noticed the way his eyes darted when he spoke of the outside, the way his hands trembled when we asked too many questions. Something was wrong, and the older I got, the louder that truth screamed. That night, the storm's howl drowned out Father's snores. My heart pounded as I crept from my mattress, my bare feet numb on the icy floor. The staircase was behind the cupboard, a narrow spiral of wood that groaned under weight. I'd never climbed it alone. Father always watched, counting our steps, ensuring we never lingered near the door. But tonight, he slept, and the storm was my ally. I pushed the cupboard aside, wincing at the scrape of wood on stone. The staircase loomed, a black throat leading to the unknown. I didn't know what waited above, but I knew I couldn't stay. Not anymore. The farmhouse above was a ghost of a place, its windows boarded, its air thick with dust. I moved through it like a thief, my breath hitching at every creak. The front door was heavy, rusted, but it gave way under my desperate shove. Rain lashed my face as I stepped outside, the first time I'd felt the open sky. It was terrifying, too vast, too loud. I ran, my legs weak, my lungs burning, until I saw the faint glow of a bar in the distance. I burst through the door, soaked and shaken, and ordered 5 beers. Why 5, I don't know. Maybe it was the first number that came to mind, a desperate grasp at normalcy. The bartender stared, but I barely saw him. Words spilled out of me. I need help. My family. We've been hidden. 9 years. Please. The police came quickly, their lights slicing through the storm. I led them back to the farmhouse, my heart a drumbeat of dread. What would Father do when he woke? What would happen to my siblings? The officers found the cupboard, the staircase, the cellar. They descended into our world, their faces hardening as they saw the truth. My siblings were there, gaunt and pale, their eyes wide with confusion. Sarah, the youngest at 18, clung to Leah, who was 22. The twins, Amos and Jonah, both 20, stood frozen, their hands clasped. Miriam, 23, stared at the officers like they were apparitions. And Abel, the eldest at 26, sat beside Father, his face unreadable. Father was feeble now, his strength eroded by years underground. He didn't fight as the police led him away. The cellar was a nightmare made real, windowless, freezing, lit by that single bulb. Mold clung to the walls, and our belongings, tattered books, chipped bowls, threadbare blankets, were scattered like relics of a forgotten life. The officers found journals I'd hidden, scribbled with questions I'd never dared ask aloud. Why are we here? What's outside? Is Father lying? They found tools, too, half-finished projects Father made us build, claiming they'd protect us. From what, he never said. The police took us to a hospital, a place of blinding lights and strange smells. We were malnourished, our bodies weak, our minds frayed. None of us had been to school, seen a doctor, or cut our hair in years. Sarah didn't know what a car was. Amos flinched at the sound of a door closing. Leah whispered to me that she thought the sky would fall. We were strangers to the world, and it was a stranger to us. The doctors were kind, but their questions cut deep. How long had we been down there? Why didn't we leave sooner? I wanted to scream that we didn't know how. That fear was a lock we couldn't break. The investigation unraveled Father's lies. His name wasn't even his real one. He'd been a drifter, a man with no past, who'd built the cellar long before we were born. The farmhouse was his, bought with money no one could trace. Neighbors said he was quiet, kept to himself, never drew attention. They hadn't known we existed. The police found no records of us, no births, no names, nothing. We were ghosts, erased from the world before we'd ever lived in it. Life after the cellar was a different kind of prison. The world was too bright, too loud, too fast. People stared, whispered, called us the cellar children. Journalists hounded us, their cameras flashing like lightning. We were placed in a safe house, a small cottage with windows that let in too much light. Social workers taught us things we'd never learned: how to use a phone, how to shop, how to exist. But the lessons couldn't erase the nightmares. I woke screaming most nights, convinced I was back in the cellar, Father's voice echoing in the dark. My siblings struggled, each in their own way. Abel withdrew, barely speaking, his eyes haunted by memories he wouldn't share. Miriam tried to adapt, but her hands shook when she left the house. Leah and Sarah clung to each other, refusing to be separated. Amos and Jonah found solace in routine, cleaning the cottage obsessively as if order could erase the past. I was the one who'd escaped, but I felt no freer than they did. Guilt gnawed at me. Had I betrayed them by running? Had I broken our family or saved it? Years passed, but the cellar never left us. I learned to drive, got a job, built a life. But every closed door, every dim light sent my heart racing. My siblings scattered, some staying close, others drifting far. We rarely spoke of the cellar, but it bound us, a scar we all carried. Father died in custody, his secrets buried with him. I visited his grave once, hoping for answers, but found only silence. I'm telling you this because the world needs to know. Not just the horror of the cellar, but the strength it took to survive it. We were children, trapped in a lie, but we found our way out. I found my way out. The storm that night was my salvation, the bar my lifeline. I don't know if I'll ever feel whole, but I'm here, breathing, living, and that's enough. The Ruinerwold house still stands, empty now, its secrets exposed. The fields around it are quiet, but they remember. They saw me run, saw my siblings emerge, saw the darkness we left behind. If you pass by, don't linger. The cellar's gone, but its chill remains, a whisper in the wind that says some secrets are better left buried.